CEO of the Greater San Fernando Valley Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our Business in Focus webinar series. Today we're talking about, it's a sales webinar, understanding neuro-linguistic programming. Now, I was interested in this because a bunch of chambers across the country were doing a whole sales training series on neuro-linguistic programming and how you use it to increase your sales. And we've had Michael speak for us several times on different sales training workshops, and he's hit it out of the park. People loved it, but Fumi and I didn't want the same webinar, so we asked him, because we knew Sandler Training, which is who he represents, does this type of workshop. So I'm hoping to learn something too today. A few housekeeping tips. This is going to be pretty interactive. Michael's going to be asking you questions, and you're going to be able to answer. We don't want people talking over each other. We're not even going to ask you to mute yourself, so that way you don't have to worry about unmuting unless you have some background noise. Like if you have someone's mowing the lawn, your dog's barking, then put yourself on mute. Otherwise, feel free to, you can either raise your hand using the reaction, or you could probably just speak out, right, Michael?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so interactive today. And with that said, and then also I just need to say this. So Michael's with Sandler Training, and we're not allowed to put this webinar on our YouTube channel. So if you want a copy of it later, you're gonna have to send me an individual email, and we'll send you then the recording, just so you know that. And so let me introduce Michael. Michael Gordon is the president of Sandler Training. And hold on a second. I don't have Fumi here to be my wingman to do all the things that she does. Spotlight for everyone. There you go. He has Sandler trained by Flywheel Performance Management. He has over 15 years of experience as a high-performing salesperson. Wait till he tells you his story about how he hit his goals during COVID. And sales manager and small business owner. He's known for delivering double and triple-digit revenue growth. He has been on thousands of face-to-face sales calls, has made over 43,000 cold calls, and has closed business with 20-plus Fortune 500 companies. He's trained thousands of salespeople across more than 30 different industries. He's trained, coached, consulted small and mid-sized companies on developing stronger sales teams, closing more sales, and growing their margin. For us, when Eric was still with us as our membership director, he went through Michael's program and absolutely loved it. So we're very excited to have Michael back with us. Since he literally was, I think, our first workshop during COVID, and we had to change it from just normal sales to how to sell during a crisis. And he did a great job, and people loved it too. So let me turn it over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Nancy. Wow, it's a lot of pressure. You said so many nice things. I'm feeling a little bit nervous to perform now, but
I'm paying it forward because Darren said nice things about us last night.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, so I'm Michael Gordon. I own Sandler Training here in Calabasas. We work with, like Nancy said, a lot of small and mid-sized companies here in the area. And so we're going to be talking about NLP today and how it relates to sales, and hopefully how you can apply it to yourselves and your sales world. But one thing Nancy asked me to mention before we got started was we were talking about last year, and I told her that in January of 2020, I set a business goal for myself for the year. COVID happened, and I ended up hitting my goal for the year in October, which was a full 3 months early. And I told her I ended up, since there's a lot of things that we couldn't do in person and a lot of things that were canceled, that I ended up making 6,000 cold calls last year, and she wanted me to mention that. So I was actually going to share something with you guys. So anybody make cold calls, or is it just me? Richie, I love it. So I'm just gonna share this thing right here called the belief wheel with you, and I think it's kind of interesting, and you can apply it in a lot of different ways. But as a sales trainer, I always hear people, business owners, sales people, tell me, "Hey, cold calling doesn't work." And in fact, I've been in a training session with a client who told me cold calling didn't work, and I said, "Hey, Steve, let me ask you, how do you think that you guys got here as a client?" They said, "I thought it was an email." I said, "No, it was actually a cold call." So cold calling does work, but we have a thing called the belief wheel. And what it says is that our beliefs impact our judgments, or our beliefs about other people's beliefs, which impacts our actions or our non-actions, which gives us the results, which go back to reinforcing our original beliefs most of the time. So if your belief is that cold calling doesn't work, or that people won't pick up the phone, or that people won't talk to you, that's your judgments about them, which means that you're probably not going to pick up the phone and make some calls, which means you're not going to close business cold calling, which is going to go back to reinforcing your original belief that cold calling doesn't work. And you can apply this to, we use this because you can apply it to a lot of things in sales. If you think that people only buy based on price, then you're not going to go in and have a value conversation. You're going to end up losing a deal by $1, which is going to go back to reinforce your original belief that people only buy on price. So that is my unplanned snippet on beliefs. And now we shall get started. Before we jump in, anybody have anything, any comments, questions, something that you want to make sure that we cover today that would be helpful for you and make this a good use of your time?
Feel free to either speak out, or you can raise your hand, and then I guess no one has a comment. Okay, then you can make stuff up as you go, Michael.
All right, and this is going to be interactive, and I'm going to be asking for some feedback from you guys and participation. Otherwise, it's going to be really boring. And we know the quickest way to lose information is lecture, and I'm not a lecturer, I'm a trainer. And I also see that, I don't know Alina, but NLP practitioner. I'll give a quick disclaimer. Alina, I am not I know a little bit about NLP. I am not an NLP expert by any means. So if you're here thinking you're going to learn something new specifically about NLP, probably not going to be your day, but we'll talk about how it relates to sales. So anybody know what NLP is?
Neuro-linguistic programming?
Yeah. What is it?
That's what I said. I said, what the heck is this neuro-linguistic programming stuff? And so I took a quick look in Wikipedia. I'm just kidding. I know what it is. But Wikipedia says that it's a pseudo-scientific approach to communication, personal development, and psychology. And I think for today's purpose, we're going to stick with the communication part of that, unless anybody has any deep pressing issues and you want to get into a psychotherapy session and you're comfortable, maybe we can talk about that. But really what we're talking about is the way you can think about it is communication, or I think more specifically as it relates to sales, how do we build rapport? How do we connect with other people? How do we build that relationship? And I like the definition of rapport is that it means that a prospect is willing to share something with you that they're not willing to share with other traditional salespeople. So, in a nutshell, we know that rapport is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, people need to feel comfortable with us in order to open up to us. People buy from people they like, people buy from people they trust, and people trust people that are like themselves. And we also know that people buy emotionally and then justify their decisions intellectually. So if people aren't comfortable enough to tell us their problems, the things that are bugging them, how it impacts them personally, then the whole sales process is going to be a really challenging thing. So let me start off by asking you guys a question. What are some of the things that you do to build rapport with your prospects and your customers?
I feel like I need to sing the Jeopardy song here.
You try and find some commonality with them.
What are some of the things you do to build rapport? Mike, one of the things we do is they talk about themselves, but to start it off, and then when they start talking about themselves, you can ask questions.
Michael, some people put some stuff in the chat too, so let me just get to know them. Their hobbies, etc.
Okay.
Ask questions about the person you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Ask about their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Good. What else?
Share with them interaction with local businesses.
Okay.
Find common interests.
Okay, these are good. These are good.
And have them talk about themselves. Someone just wrote in the chat.
Everybody likes to talk about themselves.
Tell stories about how you helped other people.
Okay.
I'm just reading what people are putting in the chat. You don't, and by the way, if you have a microphone, you don't have to go through the chat. You could just speak up. We want this to be interactive.
One sec.
Oops, sorry.
Nancy, can't take you anywhere.
Well, that was the office phone. You know, the office phone rings to myself. So, oh my God. Hold on. Theme's on a webinar, so everything's been on my phone.
All right. Okay, good. So we're going to go through a quick exercise real quick. And if everybody has a pen and paper or something that they can write on with them, I want you to take a look at draw 4 lines horizontally, or I'm sorry, vertically. And then I'm going to read some descriptions of each line. And then I want you to rate yourself 1 to 10. So 1 or 10 up here is high, meaning that sounds exactly like me. 1 is that doesn't sound at all like me. That's the opposite of me. And then the midline here, this is neutral, meaning not really like me. So for this first line, the red line, this talks about how you deal with problems and challenges. So up here, you're thinking, you know, I love a problem, I love a challenge. I like taking on new things that I'm not sure what the outcome is. Down here at the bottom is I don't like challenges. In fact, I'm not taking on a new challenge unless I already know what the solution is before I even get started. These people tend to like a good fight or a good argument. So the next line, the yellow line, this talks about people and your interactions and your desire to be around people. So 10 up here is love people, love being around people. Going to a mixer or a social event is the most energizing and fun thing I can do. Down here on 1 is, you know, I could do without people. If I went home and I didn't talk to anyone for the rest of the day, that would be a pretty good evening for me. So this next line, this is how you deal with what we'll call structure and change. So up here is I like things to stay the same. I have the same clothes that I owned 15 years ago. When I go out to a restaurant, I get the same thing every time. And down here is I love change. I love new things. I don't like structure. And I'm always looking for something new and different. And then 4th line, the blue line, this is how you deal with rules and regulations. Up here as a 10, you're saying, I need to know the information to do the job. I need to know all the facts. I need to know the details. I need to know when it needs to get done, who needs to be involved, and how I'm going to complete the task. Down here, you're saying, the only rule I believe is that rules are meant to be broken. Everybody score themselves?
Yep.
All right, so let's go back to over here. So this is challenges. This is difficulties, trying new things. Regardless of what you rated yourself on, what do you think the people up here that really like challenges think about the people that are down here that really don't like a challenge, that are really kind of more passive and quiet?
No relationship.
Right, and being that these are the people that are up here are kind of the bulls in the china shops, as they say, what do you think they're saying about the people that are down here?
Not good things.
Not good, yeah. So they're saying things like, you know, pushover, wimpy, and the people down here at a 1, what do you think they're saying about the people that are up here?
They're too good.
Too good, too aggressive, too pushy. So let's jump over
Know it
here.
all.
What's that?
Know it all.
Know it all. Yeah, all those things I think are fair. So looking at the second line, the yellow line, the people line, what do you think the people down here, be fine if I didn't have to interact with people for the rest of the day, or maybe even the rest of the week or the month, are saying about the people up here.
When do they get work done? All they do is talk.
Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't heard that one, but yeah, chatterbox. They're all over the place. When do they get any work done? And what do you think the people up here are saying about the people down here at the bottom?
They don't participate.
They don't participate. Yeah, that's a great one. They don't talk, and a lot of times, if we go on a sales call and somebody and this used to be me all the time back in the day, somebody was quiet and not talking, I would start talking more to try and engage with them. And if we think about managers, we think about people saying the managers might think that there's something wrong with them, and now they're trying to engage him more and saying what's the matter and trying to talk to him, and not a great connection. So let me go back to this other screen just for a minute. I had to save it because it's separate. But give me 1 second. We have to share it this way. You guys see the desktop?
Yes.
So let me ask you, when you go into somebody who's high on the red line, a 10, the people that like challenges and arguments and are bottom line thinkers and like to get right to the point, and you ask them about their kids and you ask them about what some of their hobbies are, what do you think their first instinct or their first reaction is?
Get to the point.
No chit chat.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about that.
Bottom
Yeah.
line it.
They want to get to the money, to the deal.
Exactly. I can, I happen to be high on that red line, and I'll explain what those lines mean in a minute. But I had a person call on me, a salesperson, come to sell me something, and I think we had 15 minutes. And this is back when I had an office. She came into my office and started asking me about my weekend, and I just cringed up because I knew we didn't have a lot of time, and that was the last thing I wanted to talk about. I didn't care to share about how my weekend was, and I didn't want to hear about hers, and it was nothing against her. That's just not my thing. If we're friends, maybe we can talk about it. But so I want you to think about it as we go through, and let me jump back onto that other screen for a minute.
What about it depending upon who you're talking to?
Hold on 1 second. Depending on who you're talking to, that's a good point, and we'll get there in just a second. So the lines right here actually represent the DISC profile. And if anybody not heard of DISC, and a lot of people haven't, so raise your hand if you don't know, and I'll give you a brief overview.
Do it.
Okay, so the DISC profile talks about the 4 different personality types. And I always like to say that there's no right or wrong personality type. All this refers to is the things that either give us energy or take energy away from us. So for me, I'm a very high D, I'm a dominant. So people making small talk with me is very de-energizing for me. It takes energy away. I don't like to have that conversation. The I, if you found yourself high on that yellow line, that means you're an influencer, that you get energy. At the end of the day, if you're trying to recharge your battery, going out to a bar, a restaurant, or some sort of social gathering is going to be something that charges your battery. If you found yourself high on the green line, that's a steady relator. So these are people that feel really comfortable doing the same thing. They really don't like change. And we can think about this in the sales process, that if we're going in and we're meeting with somebody who's a steady relator, we probably don't want to talk about making significant changes in their life and in their business or whatever it is that we're trying to introduce. We want to talk about how change will be gradual. Say things like, it's probably going to be similar to what you're doing now, but we're going to be systematizing. We're going to be making incremental changes over time. And then the compliance. These are, this was the final line back on this graph over here. These are the people that like rules and regulations. They need a lot of information to make a decision. They like rules, they like systems, they like process. And an easy way to think about these are people like accounting folks. So if you're talking to them, you maybe don't want to share a lot about your feelings about what your product is or what you're selling or what you've done for other people. You want to be providing numbers, statistics, KPIs, spreadsheets, things like that. And so when we think about how we go about communicating with these people, so the D, these people are the dominant, the drivers, the people that are bottom line thinkers, great prospects because they make decisions really quickly. And I know for me, that's energizing. If people can't make decisions, that's exhausting for me. And I know for me, I've made many, I bought a house over the phone, never even saw it before. This was way back before they had all the video things on the internet where you can do virtual tours. So the need-based behavior of the dominant of the D is to be in control. So if we go into a meeting and we're thinking about how are we going to connect with this person, here would be the ideal thing that woman who came into my office I mentioned, this would have been the ideal starter. She would have said, hey, Michael, we have 15 minutes together. Let's pretend it's 15 minutes from now. What would you like to make sure that we cover during that time to make a great use of our time together? I would have bought whatever she had before she even told me about it. Next is the, by the way, do we have any D's in the audience?
I'm a minor D.
Okay. What did you score yourself?
I like a 6 or 7.
Okay.
I do like to know the information before I make a decision. And once I get the information, I'll make it, but I don't go in there, full bore and just go, I want that right now. And I see it, but I do like a bottom line though, if this is the one.
And by the way, we're all have a combination of all of these characteristics. Some are going to be high, some are going to be low, but your highest trait under pressure is what you're going to revert to. So when you're feeling stressed out, you're going to, whatever that characteristic is. For me, it's a D. I also have some I, but I know under pressure, I am just like this. I'm a lack of concern and I'm freaking out. I'm needing to get some answers. I'm needing to get things resolved. On the I side, the influencer, the social butterflies, the people that like going to social gatherings. We got any I's out here?
Me, Alina.
Alina with Michael here.
Yeah. Oh man, it's amazing. You guys all just popped in so quickly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, you're talking to a bunch of people that go to chamber events. So,
Hi.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think my personal life, I'm an I, but I don't think there's any doubt anyone who knows me doesn't think I'm a D.
Okay. And that's a great point. So
I would concur.
I don't know who said that, but yeah. I mean, I look at Brad, who knew me outside the chamber first, and he probably thinks I'm an I. Now he sees this D side.
That makes sense. This is Art Oz. I said that.
This is completely different Nancy than I knew before the pandemic.
Yeah, I was totally an I.
Makes sense.
But if you sell me something, I'm a quick decision maker. Don't waste my time.
yeah, so that's probably a lot of D. And so the I's, the influencers, these people's need-based behavior is the need to be liked. And so if you think about that, and here's one thing I'm always really conscious of when I'm working with a prospect that's an I want to tell them, hey, look, if you don't think that what I have is a good fit, would you be nice enough to tell me that? Because I don't want to waste my time, and people tend to think that if they say no, that you're not going to like them. I'll tell them, we'll still be friends. I'll still send you a card at the holidays. But these people, they have a high need for approval. So think about that as you're going through with them. Then we have the steady.
Michael, when you take the disc profile, it does loop you into being, or not loop you in. It does. You are a combination. You're not just a one, an A, a B, a C. You're usually like an AI, right?
Yeah, no.
Or an AS or an SI.
Yeah. So like I said, we all have all four parts of this. Meaning that if I go back here for a second, my D is 90. I think 97. My I is maybe, I don't know, like 60. And then my S is all the way down here. So I'm a very below, it's called below the line S. So I am S, but I'm very below the line. I don't like routine. I have a hard time doing the same thing over and over again. And then here I am, if you could be a negative on the C, that's me. Like processes, systems, rules, regulations ain't really my thing. So, but yeah, you're right. We all have each of these components in us. And then last, let's see. So these folks need for stability. So again, we don't want to go in, and I have a background in selling technology, and there's this term in technology called rip and replace, which means we're going in, we're pulling out everything the incumbent had, we're changing everything up and putting in a whole new systems. So if you're ever talking with somebody who's a steady relator, never want to use the word rip and replace. Never want to talk about drastic changes, because that's going to make their toes curl and they're going to have a very hard time even thinking about how they would possibly wrap their arms around something like that, because it's very uncomfortable for them. And then finally, the C's, the steady relators. So these people have the need, their need-based behavior is the need to be right. So these people need a lot of information. If you've ever thought about a prospect that you're like, this person is ready to go, we spent time together, and they call you back and they need some more information, they call you back, they need some references, they call you back, they need some more literature. This is a C. And an easy way to think about this is, I think CPAs, accountants, these are the people kind of dry, they're not very outgoing, they're very fact and number based. So think about these. And what I always say to somebody that's a C is, hey, look, at some point, I know you're going to want a lot of information, but at some point I'm going to run out of things to give you, and I'm just not going to have anything else I can help you out with. When we get to that point, are you going to be comfortable if I say, are we okay making some sort of decision, whether that be yes or no? And I want to make sure I get that permission to ask them, because I know that, if I don't bring that up, they're going to, I'm going to get them a referral, or I'm going to get them somebody that they can talk to, and they're going to say, you know what, that person was great, but they're not in our same industry. Is there someone in our industry? And maybe I'll get someone in my industry, and they're going to say, they're in our industry, but they're not in our same geography. Is there someone I can talk to? So these are the things, just kind of high level. I know it's a lot to be thinking about as you go through your sales process and you go back to interacting with people. So somebody had a question I didn't forget about you. You said, what if you're talking with somebody that's like you? Who asked that question a while back? And I think it may have been a...
Oh, well, it was kind of a question, but it was kind of just a thought as well, that, I change depending upon who I'm talking to as well. Like, if it's something I don't care about as much, then I might rest through it a little bit more, or if someone's trying to sell me versus, me talking to someone else. So, that I'm trying to sell. So it does, in that sense, I change. So.
Okay, no, and that's a great point. I was putting that on hold for a minute because I want you to finish this sentence. I think we all know the golden rule: treat others
the way you want to be treated.
You want to be treated.
Exactly, and that's the golden rule. But in sales, I think we could change that to sell others the way they want to be sold, which means
100%.
Yeah.
Which means, as salespeople, you get paid to adapt to your prospect. Your prospects and clients don't get paid to buy from you. You get paid when you sell to them. So it's our responsibility as salespeople to, we call it mirror and match, to adapt our style to match theirs, to make it comfortable for them. So what that means is, a lot of eyes out there, you may want to socialize and ask people about their weekend and look at the pictures on their wall and talk about their family. But if that person isn't an extrovert, they're not somebody who likes to have chit chat, then it's usually a good idea to avoid that, to make sure, again, that we're adapting to them, to make them comfortable. Because I think traditional salespeople talk about building rapport and building trust by having conversations. And I don't know about you, but have you ever had a long conversation with someone and say, hey, that person was a real idiot? And that's not really rapport. Rapport is an unspoken language. It's connecting on a more neuroscientific type of level. So let's talk about some of the things that we can do and some of the ways that we can adjust to meet our prospects and our customers where they're at. So anybody familiar with primary sensory dominance, or you may have seen the acronym VAK?
I've seen the acronym VAK.
No.
Okay, so this talks about visuals, auditories, and kinesthetics, and this is how people receive information the best.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
And so the majority of people are visuals, and I want to say it's something like 65%, 25% is auditory, and then I don't know, 10% is kinesthetic. And if there's any C's out there, you're adding up those numbers to see if I added up to 100% right now. But it's important to talk and communicate with people the way that they like to be communicated with. So visual people, they see the world in pictures. Because they see the world in pictures, they're usually fast talkers. And so when we're talking about and speaking with them and we're presenting solutions, we want to show them pictures. We want to give them things that they can see and we want to listen for cues when people say, I'd like to see what that looks like. I want to see how that works. And so we want to be able to meet them where they're at and give them things that they can look at. Auditories, these people tend to talk slower because when they say something out loud, it's the second time they're hearing it. They're saying it in their head before they're actually saying it out loud. So they tend to speak slower. And we'll talk about mirroring and matching people's voice and tonality in a minute, but these people say, I'd like to hear more about that. And when we're doing presentations, we're typically going to want to talk through something with them or have some sort of audio for them to listen to rather than giving them a big visual presentation, because it's just not going to resonate with them. And then kinesthetics, these are the people that get the world through feel and touch. They say things like, I want to see if I can wrap my arms around it. And so as we're relating with them and we're talking with them during a sales process, or however we may be engaging with them, we want to share common words with them, like, is that something you can wrap your arms around? I can see what you're feeling right now, and that makes sense to me. So really the idea is that we want to meet people where they're at and communicate with them the style that's most comfortable for them. So we're mirroring and matching, and again, communicating with them the way they prefer and not communicating the way we prefer. You good with that? Any questions on that? Anyone know what their style is?
Visual.
I'm
Yeah.
visual.
Visual.
Well, auditory.
Okay.
I have some kinetic too.
Yeah, it's all three.
Kinesthetic, sorry.
Okay.
Depending upon what I'm looking at.
Okay. And you may be a visual, you may be a more highly visual if you said it depends what I'm looking at. But yeah, I think we can all have parts of it, but most of us have one modality that we move to. So kind of along those same lines, we'll transition into the elements of communication. And we know that the way people receive information when we speak and when we communicate is by the spoken word, by tonality and body language or physiology. So let me ask you guys, of these three things, the spoken word, what you actually say, how you say it, and your physiology, which one do you think is the most impactful for how human beings receive information?
Body language.
Body
Body
language.
language.
Body language.
Okay.
How does that work with Zoom?
It's interesting because
No.
I think it translates into Zoom. And we were doing a training a few weeks ago, and there was a lady that she had two screens, and I'm trying to figure out how I would do this. So she was looking at this screen, but had her camera over here, and she was talking with someone else. And you could tell that there was kind of a misconnection, and it was because her body language, the way she was sitting, was different than the way everybody else was sitting. And it was creating some kind of a disconnect. And I don't have any scientific data to prove that, but you can tell that when we're mirroring and matching and we're in rapport with somebody, that it becomes apparent. And if we're having different body language than what they are, then it's pretty easy to break down that report. But again, I'm not an expert. I don't know if we have enough data to talk about that, but all right. So yes, correct. Body language physiology is the most impactful way people receive information. What comes after that?
Tonality.
So now we got experts here. Let me just jump through. So yeah, the way people receive information the most is body language. Second most is tonality. So this is 55%. This tonality is, I want to say 35%, and the spoken word is something like, I want to say like 8%. And so what that means, and I don't know if you were like me when I was growing up, I got sent to my room quite a bit. And what my parents would always tell me was it wasn't what you said, but it was how you said it.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so as we communicate with people, either in person, by Zoom, by email, it's really important to know how people say that, because you could be having a great conversation with someone, have bad body language, have a look on your face that's just not conveying what it really is that you mean. So being aware of that is super important. And then when we take body language out of it, if we're communicating by phone and we just have the spoken word and tonality, the spoken word becomes 12% and tonality becomes 88%. So and I don't remember who it was, Richie, I think you said you made cold calls. Tonality, highly important in what you're saying to people and how you're saying it. And then here's another one I kind of wanted to point out because I think it's important. So email. And I'm going to give you a sentence. I want you to tell me what this sentence means.
I didn't say she stole.
That's where you put the comma.
Okay.
I didn't, comma, say she stole the money.
No, she didn't steal the money. No, she stole the money.
Yeah, so and when we're speaking, we don't always have the opportunity to say I, comma, didn't say. So I didn't say she stole the money. Could be interpreted pretty straightforward. I didn't say she stole the money. I said I didn't say she stole the money, I could be implying that she stole it. I didn't say she stole the money, could mean she didn't steal it, but somebody else did. I didn't say she stole the money, which means maybe she borrowed it. I didn't say she stole the money, but maybe she stole something else. So here's one sentence that can have seven different meanings depending on how you say it. So tonality is important in conversation. And we talk about active listening, about listening to what our prospects and for that matter, people in our personal lives are saying, and making sure we're checking and restating and rephrasing what we said to make sure that not only we said what we meant, but what we said was understood, because it's really simple to convey the wrong thing and for people to misunderstand us. And then moving this to email, email is the easiest way to blow opportunities. And I hear this from clients all the time. They call me and they say, what should I say in email? And the answer is don't communicate by email if it's part of the sales process. It's too easy to screw things up. And I think there's a simple rule of this: don't introduce any new concepts by email. If you're asking what time, if you're asking for some nuanced detail, I think that's okay. But if you're trying to introduce some sort of new concept, pick up the phone and call. And I know people are saying, but that's so much work. It's so much work to pick up the phone and call someone. But that is what I'm going to say as far as that goes. And then let me pause there. Any comments, feedback, questions, concerns, disagreements, gripes so far?
Yeah, Mr. Gordon, on this sentence here, you say seven meanings. I see two. Are we splitting hairs if we go further? Because you said the meaning of, I didn't say she stole the money. There's one, because I didn't say it. Or then you say, I didn't say she stole the money.
Yeah, and I didn't say she stole the money, but somebody else could have said it.
Okay.
I didn't say she stole the money. I didn't say she stole the money, but somebody else stole the money. Maybe it wasn't her. I didn't say she stole the money.
Oh my God.
Maybe she borrowed it. I didn't say she stole the money, but maybe she stole my wallet. So, and I think in this sense, I think it's almost every word you can change which word you're emphasizing, and you'll have a different meaning. So no, not splitting hairs on that. But,
yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
Getting to the emails, I think they're useful because you can get your information in terms of your, your website, your email address and phone number out fairly easily. And I also like to put like a tidbit of information, so you're not actually trying to sell. Like just now, we've got on our website different ways to avoid fraudulent transactions. So I like to put that in. So I'm giving them a piece of information, but not selling them. So I think email's got a place, but as you say, unlikely to close the sale via an email.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'll tell you, a lot of times you'll have those prospects that send you that question, and they say, "Oh, by the way, what's the delivery charge for the?" I'm just making something up. And number one, I hate that question by email. I hate any question like that by email, because what I really know is, number one, that's not the real question. The real, and I would love to call them, and what I usually will, I'll pick up the phone and ask, "Hey, great question. I hear that all the time, but why are you asking?" Because I know that some competitor probably came in and is offering them a lower price, and they're gonna say, "Oh, well, I was just kind of curious." Okay, and I want to dig in more. Well, great, but I'm of all the questions you could ask, why'd you ask that one right now? And you'll get to it, and they'll say, "Oh, because your competition offered it to us, and they're gonna give us free delivery." Oh, and if I just answer the question and give them the answer, they may disqualify me and say, "Yeah, that's what I thought. We're going to go with the competitors." So I think email it's convenient. It's good for a lot of things. It's a horrible place to sell. It's, Richie, to your point, it's use it for prospecting. I get that. Use it for whatever you need, but it's really not a great medium to try and work a sales deal.
And how long through an email does somebody usually get? When you open up an email and you're like, "Oh, okay," and then you open it up and it's like, boom, 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 boom. And don't you lose the attention of someone when they open it up and it's a super long email? Or even if you do grab their attention, they read the first couple of lines, and if they don't get it, they delete or scroll. It's like stop the scroll in social media, right?
Yeah, well, so here's one thing I'll say. I know we're getting off on a tangent here, but there's this, I think it's an amazing tool. It's called Vidyard. It's a free software that's a browser plugin, and you hit the button, it records you, and you can send a video message through email. And I think it's brilliant. Engagement is so high. When we talk about visual people, or we talk about auditory people, we're able to send something that they can see and they can hear. You can control your tonality. You can control the things you're saying. And it's, when you hear that there's been a 400% increase in email since the pandemic started, this is just a very different way to stand out. And it's a really simple way to communicate effectively for either I use it for prospecting. I use it for clients. If I'm wrapping up a session, I'll send clients a recap in Vidyard. I can put that in the chat for you guys if you want. Vidyard. It's a free software you can use, but I think it's kind of a game changer, especially now during the pandemic.
Yeah, let us know about that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Mr. Gordon, what is the name of that website?
Vidyard.
What?
Vidyard.
Vidyard. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, okay. Vidyard.
And so now we're going to do a quick quiz, and we got 12 minutes left. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and then we can wrap up. I'll take any questions that you guys might have. So we talked about the disc profiles, the personality types. I want you to just type into chat or yell out somebody famous that you can think of that is a dominant.
Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
Oprah Winfrey. Well, she's more an influencer.
Dominant.
Someone famous that's a dominant.
Yeah.
Oh, redirect.
Already.
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'll take that. All right. So now I want you to shout out or type in the chat somebody that's an I, somebody that's an influencer.
That's what I would say. Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey, I think that's a good one.
Jennifer Aniston.
Okay. Any others?
Kardashian.
She's an influencer professionally.
So Tony Robbins fits this one?
Yeah, he fits this one too.
I think so.
I don't know him personally.
I want you to think of somebody that's an S, a steady relator. The reason why I'm having you pick, number one, I want to make sure you learn something in picking this, but if you can have somebody that you could think of famous that matches each profile, it'll be easier for you to, when you meet with people, to think about who does this person match up with, who do they remind me of, and that'll help you identify their styles. So somebody who's an S, a steady relator.
Princess Diana.
Pretty, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
How about Obama?
I was going to say President Obama also.
Yeah, he's.
And I would think Michelle Obama more.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else we got?
And then somebody who's a C, a compliance.
Lions. I mean, those are like all accounting type people, like, like Albert Einstein.
Okay.
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. Yeah.
Bill Gates. Okay.
Yeah, Steve Jobs.
Niles on Frasier.
Niles on Frasier. Or
Warren Buffett.
Spock from Star Trek.
Okay.
Fred on I Love Lucy.
Okay.
Yeah, your neighborhood accountant.
Your neighborhood accountant. So good. So think about in those terms, as far as, and again, I think this is just such a game changer. If you take nothing else away from this, if you're able to think about how people like to receive information, you're going to go a lot further in a sales call and a lot further in sales. So
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers. Well, let me so another way to tell it, I think this takes longer to learn, but if you're trying to figure out is somebody, which primary profile is someone, figure out, are they task oriented, are they people oriented, meaning if somebody comes to your office, they say, hey Darren, did you get that report finished for me? That's probably a task oriented person. If they came in and they said, Darren, hey, how was lunch? Good. All right. And did you get the report finished for me? You're going to know you can go to the upper quadrant if it's a task oriented person. If it's a people oriented, you can go to the bottom half and then think, are they extroverted or are they introverted? Meaning at the end of the day, are they going to be going to a bar, a social gathering, a mixer? Those are your extroverts. Or are they going home to watch Netflix and relax or read a book on the couch to recharge their battery? And you should have a pretty good idea of what that person is.
I think when you go back to dominant, because I was unmuted first, I would think Simon Cowell from, he's dominant, and Gordon Ramsay.
Yes.
Oh God.
Good ones.
Nancy.
Well, I was muted. I was going to say Gordon Ramsay, because he is so dominant.
Yes, and And so imagine walking into his office and asking him how his weekend was. Or asking him about the pictures of his kids or about his family. You know, that he's about as high as the D as it gets. So you're, you know, but think about other people. Again, so the whole idea is think about other people, identify how they like to be communicated with, meet them where they're at. You may like to talk about your weekend, but you get paid to close business, and therefore you'll be more successful if you adapt to them than putting your style values upon them. So we're done. We got 7 minutes left. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Any questions?
So with what you spoke about today and implementing that into your business, what is your perspective on how to find your style and best present yourself in being able to adapt to different people's styles that you're trying to sell to? Yeah, great question. So I always have a notepad with me, even if I'm having a Zoom meeting, and at the top of my notepad, I always write DISC. And as soon as I sit down, it reminds me to start thinking about it. And ideally, before I go, I want to know there's some tools you can get. There's a tool called Crystal Knows, which will actually analyze people's LinkedIn profiles and tell you what it thinks their disc profile is. But I just write it down, and as I sit down with them, it's as soon as I open up my notebook, I start thinking about it. It's funny, I went into a guy's office one time and opened up my notebook, and he looked at it, he said, "Oh," he's like, "I'm a D." I said, "Oh, perfect. That makes this really easy. This should be a pretty quick meeting." And I was a D, he was a D, so we hit it off. But that's it. And like, again, some people are going to be a mix of characteristics. So you're going to have to figure out, they may be high D and some I. I've gone through meetings where I sat down and I thought, this person's a D. And the more we spoke, I started thinking, hey, this person might really be a C. But the more you practice it, the more natural it'll get. You'll always just start thinking, what's this person's style? I'll throw one more kind of tidbit in there. When I'm cold calling, we use a thing called a pattern interrupt, something that sounds different from every salesperson that's calling. So I would call and say, "Hey, Brad, Michael Gordon," and you're going to pause for a second. And I'll say, I'm assuming my name, Brad, is completely meaningless to you. And you're going to say, and depending on your answer, I will know exactly what your disc style is. A D is going to say, yeah, it is. And I is going to say, I speak with so many people, maybe you could help me out. An S is going to say, everybody's name has some meaning. And a C, I always say, I don't know, can you give me some more information to help me remember how I might know you? And I've got somebody's disc style just like that. And now I'm into the conversation. So then would you recommend that if you haven't done the disc profile, or if it's been a long time, that you do go and take the disc profile so you do understand the differences between the two and what your personality is? Because, for example, I took the disc profile a couple of times, but a long time ago, I thought I was a B. I'm a B. And I went to an event, or it was a family thing, and they go, "Oh my God, how do you have 2 A's in a household?" I'm like, "I'm not an A, I'm a B." You know what I mean? And they're like, "No, you're an A." And then I took the profile, and there's like that mix of an A and an I, or an A and a this, where I wasn't a driver, but there's a strong personality. Do you know what I mean? That sort of thing, where people might say, "So what do you think you are?" Like today you said, "So what do you think you are?" "Oh, I'm a D, and I'm a this, and I'm a that." But maybe that's what they think they are, but they're not. Does that make sense? It does. And that's interesting, because when you actually take the profile on the report page, it has profile 1 and profile 2. And profile 1, or profile 2 rather, is your natural profile. And then profile 1 is you at work, and it's called your perceived need to adjust. So as we have our natural style, and then as we go out into the world, at some psychological subconscious level, we believe that we need to change ourselves in some way, to think that by changing ourselves or adjusting our style in some way, it's going to make us more successful. And so that's we call it your natural, and then you at work, or you kind of out in public. So it is very possible that you could have
two different styles that people perceive, or that you could have two different styles that maybe you perceive yourself. But really the idea of DISC is to help, help us understand the things, understand ourselves, the things that are motivating to us, or the things that take away energy for us, to help understand other people, how they like to receive information, and to help us understand how other people can perceive us. Because I know if I'm just being me and I walk into a sales call with somebody that's an I, and I were just going to do it my way, they'd say that's a really pushy salesperson, didn't have any chit chat, didn't warm me up, and they're not going to want to talk to me. They're not going to want to have a conversation with me. They're not going to feel comfortable doing business. So it helps me to know how people might perceive me. So
good information.